Thanks, JR. Hi, I'm Raf. I work for Systemic. I'm here to present the SIF agent design and implementation that was done on behalf of the NT. The SIF agent is actually a providing agent which provides student and attendance and enrolment information to the central school system. It used the version 1.0 of the SIF spec and incorporated these particular SIF objects. Of these SIF objects, the student daily attendance object is currently not used due to load reasons, but every other object is actually being sent and is in operation at this point in time. The development environment was initially Microsoft.NET 3.5 Service Pack 1. It's just recently been upgraded to version 4 to meet an upgrade by the NT servers. The development was done on Windows XP and also used the Pearson SIFWorks 80K version 2.30. The only other library outside the SIFWorks 80K was Log4net. Log4net is a logging tool which is used by the 80K and also used by the code you implemented for the SIF agent. The deployment environment for the SIF agent is located in the DT Northern Territory offices. It's based on a Windows server in .NET Framework 4.0. The ZIS is set up in Melbourne on the NSIP servers, and there is one zone for the NT data, similar to the other states where there's one zone for the South Australian data and one zone for the West Australian data. Connectivity to the zone is through HTTPS, and for this particular implementation there are 3 agents set up, one for school information, one for student information, one for attendance information, although as we go through the presentation I'll explain that this is a rather arbitrary configuration and it can be done in multiple ways. This is just a general overview of how the different systems communicate in terms of the SIF agents and the ZIS. The NT component on the left hand side, the NT database is actually the staging database which is connected to the NT agent. The NT agent sends events and also response to requests to the ZIS. The ZIS is hosted in Victoria. The ZIS then forwards any requests, any events and any responses to an agent which is hosted in WA. This goes to a WA database which the central schools or the Tri-Borders application sits on top of, and from this database they have a consolidated view of student attendance information. The general architecture for the SIF agent is fairly straightforward. There's nothing really complicated about it. We use the NT staging database. We have a data access object layer which sits on top of that to communicate and transfer data from the database. We have a service layer which incorporates any particular business logic that's required. In this case, for this agent, there isn't a lot of business logic because we utilize the mapping facility of the SIFWorks 80K, and I'll go through that a bit further later on. Above the service layer, where we have the publishers. In this case, there are 3 publishers for school information, student information, and attendance information. For each publisher, there is a set of configuration information which uniquely defines that publisher and defines how that publisher is run. I'll just go through what I think is an important aspect of this side of the project, and that's the staging database used from the NT. The staging database was provided by NT, and it was provided by NT because the NT had the data and business expertise required to manage the data and manage any business logic which is associated with the data. This left the agent free to just incorporate 80K specific handshake and delivery. The staging database also managed the SIF RefID assignment and also managed any issues with data quality. Things like the code set mappings, which is an important part of the system, is managed by the staging database. The staging database managed the code set mappings between NT-specific code sets to the SIF-specific code sets. So, for instance, if they use a number to define a state, they had to remap that to the unique, in this case, 2-letter code used by SIF. For instance, their state ID may be 01, whereas NT may be NT. The staging database was also important in the fact that the schema definition was closely aligned to the SIF spec. It made the objects easier to be read from a SIF agent. This simplified the agent creation greatly and reduced the amount of code required to be written to implement the SIF agent. It also allowed the system to isolate the master database, which in this case is read-only. The SIF agent did not want to communicate directly to the master database as it had no privileges to do so. By having a predefined database to work off, this provided a reliable API for the agent. And when I say API, I'm referring to the specific database tables and columns within the table, and I'll go into that more detail on that in a minute when I go through the configuration of each agent.